Meanwhile, on the comic box.
Bow, 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 down, 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 bow, down, bow.
Down, down.
Down.
Bow.
Bell.
Do.
Comics.
Comics.
Whatever.
Box.
We'll fix it. We got time. We got all the time in the world.
Oh, yeah.
To make that better. Welcome to the Comic Box, everybody. Part of the Geek to Geek podcast network. I am Rob, your friendly neighborhood comic geek, and with me once again is Liam O'Rourke. Hi, Liam.
Hi, Rob. Hi, comic box fans.
So how are you doing this week, Liam? Well, I suppose before we say that, our topic of the week this week is an interview that I did with Void. I had Void on, and we talked about the Batman Telltale game because he was very excited about it, and we had agreed that the next time he played a superhero or comic book related video game, we were going to hear about it on this show. So I have that segment coming up. But first, Liam, Weekly Geekery, what were you up to this week?
Well, as you know, I'm big into the pop vinyl figures. So I bought a few more of those, and I reorganized my collection, which was the big thing.
Like even more from last time? Because last week you said you bought more pop vinyls.
Yeah, I did. Maybe 7 or 8 new ones that, now also need to be organized into the collective.
I think you might have a problem there, Liam.
It's a poplum, bro. It's a poplum.
Okay. Anyway, I did share the pictures that you sent me. I did share on the Twitter. So if you go to Rob's Comic Box on Twitter or at Rob's Comic Box, you'll see some of the pictures of what he's got right now, which is already ridiculous.
It's a good collection, but it is far dwarfed by other people's. So, yeah.
That's not a true argument, though. That's like being like,
but I'm only just over 100.
Give me one of those big Australian beers I keep hearing about. Thum. Yeah, I guess it's big.
That's not a collection. This is a collection,
Yeah, that's not a collection. That's a hoard.
Hey, when I'm buried like an Egyptian emperor, pharaoh someday, I'm going to be surrounded by the dull, lifeless eyes of hundreds of pop figures.
So you got that to look forward to.
So I've got that going for me.
Which is nice. What else you got going on this week? Reading anything? Watching anything?
I did catch up on an episode of Voltron last night. So I think I'm at episode 7 now. The one I just watched was the one where Pidge decides to finally confirm the fact that he is not a he, but is in fact a she.
I really like that. I like that.
Yeah,
for this series.
I did too, and
they did that.
I especially like that everyone was just like, "Wait, what? That was supposed to be a secret?" Nobody cared. Everybody already knew, except for the one dude, and then it wasn't like a big issue. It was just done.
And that's the best way to play it, I think, as well.
Yeah.
Instead of making a big deal out of it. And this is not a spoiler at all. I have this coming up in mind. I've also been I finished watching Voltron this last week. And hey, what do you know? The new season just came out on Netflix. Ooh. So I watched the first, I think, 2 episodes of season 2. And I love that Pidge calls her Lion Girl as well. So,
oh, cool.
Which I just thought was kind of a neat thing instead of, I think, what's his name? Not Lance. What's the red guy? Keith.
Keith. Yeah.
Yeah. Keith was just calling his lion Red or whatever. Like, how you doing, Red? I think.
Yeah.
I think that was instead of just being like, is everything okay, girl? And I like that because the pilot is female, therefore the ship is female.
Yeah, and it shows a bit of a connection to their lion, even though it's a machine in most ways. It's also got this kind of mystical connection with the pilot. So I think it's cool that they would have a personalized kind of relationship with their beast.
Mm-hmm. And also just the fact that once that sort of one episode revelation, it's never come up again in the show, and still in season 2. There's been absolutely no mention because nobody cares. It's not a big deal. It doesn't bother anybody, and I really like that.
No. Yeah, it doesn't define their character at all. They've already shown themselves as being like a really hard working member of the team, a very competent like cyber hacker kind of character. So they've got their strengths and weaknesses as a character, and this is just a detail.
Yeah,
and they just move right past it.
Yeah. How about reading? Reading anything?
I haven't this week, but I am looking forward to reading all these Supreme Forces,
Superior Foes of Spider-Man.
Superior Foes of Spider-Man that you lent me. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I really want to know what you think of those. So we'll see if we can't get you to dive into that this week outside of all the other stuff. Because I'm trying to remember, did I loan you my Volume 1 of Greg Rucka's Punisher run? I know I own Volume 3 in trade. I don't know if I ever bought Volume 1, but if I did, I loaned it to somebody. Was that you?
I don't believe it is.
Okay. Well, that's fine. Speaking of, one of the things that I did this week is I ordered a couple trades for myself. I ordered the second and third Moon Knight trade from the last run, like the not the current one that just started, because there is one trade from that, but from the one before it that introduced like this Mr. Knight character where he wears an all-white suit with just the face mask with a little moon emblem on the forehead. And every every issue is like a standalone series for the most part. I really enjoyed that. So I ordered the second and third volume of that, and then I'm still looking forward to that Volume 2, specifically of Greg Rucka's Punisher. I guess I'm okay rebuying Volume 1 because if I loaned it to somebody and they love it so much they kept it, perfect. It's a great run. But Volume 2 you can't find anywhere. Like even on Amazon, it's like $100 or something.
Okay.
So unless you want it digitally, which great, but I want it on my shelf because I want to be able to pull it off the shelf and read it. In any case, I also went back and I did reread, I should say, Black Magic, the one that I said was my favorite trade from 2016. Because I bought it and I got it for $10 because it's an Image trade, and when you buy Volume 1 of any Image book, it's only $9.99, which is really nice.
Yeah.
Especially when you consider some of the pricing issues, which we'll get into when we get into news here.
Oh, yeah, we will.
But rereading it, I still enjoyed it. It's just the art. Like there's, in the very first issue, there's a 2-page spread, and it's just such a pretty book to look at. Not in the same way as like Batwoman's, huge painted spreads or whatever. Like it's a different style, but it's just a really good book, and it is a good read. But I do confirm, very much adults only. There's nudity and stuff in there because it deals with witchcraft. So there's some ceremony out in the woods where everybody's just wearing loose robes so you can see their bodies underneath and that kind of thing. There's nothing directly vulgar, but it's still not something I would suggest for kids.
Yeah, nudity and witches go hand in hand.
Yeah, that's
why that Roald Dahl book was shocking.
As far as reading, I also started reading Invincible via Hoopla. That's the superhero book that Robert Kirkman has been doing for years, because it's about to end this year, and it's at issue 100, I don't know what. So it's been around for about as long as Walking Dead, if not maybe even a little longer, or maybe not quite as long. I'm about 4 issues in. The first trade is 4 issues, so I must be on issue 3 or something, or midway through issue 4. It's good so far. I like it. It's the story of a kid whose father is basically Superman, for just to simplify things. Is his dad is Superman, and he finds out about it when he's like 8 or something, and then he's in high school and he finally gets his powers. So it's just him kind of trying to figure out what to do. But superheroes exist beyond his dad, and so that's kind of where we are. And his dad gets pulled into a portal, and he's like, oh, I'm sure he'll be fine. And that's the issue that I just finished on, or right where I'm at in whatever issue. Sometimes it's hard to tell with Hoopla. So I'm sure it'll be a thing where like maybe his dad goes missing and he has to kind of replace and take up that role. I don't know. Lastly, for me, for my weekly geekery, is I rewatched Age of Ultron.
Okay.
I had our buddy Ryan over. We were working on my router is acting up. And so we were just hanging out, and it's like, well, he's like, he had never seen Age of Ultron, so he's watching the Marvel movies, but in like...
The fortunate few.
Well, he's watching them all in the wrong order, because when we all, go to watch Civil War or whatever, like he comes along with us to the theater, but he's not a big comic book guy. So I think he was kind of with me on how it was sort of a disjointed mess still. Yeah. Where like it hits that level of action, which is great, but then it doesn't increase. Like they try to show you that the stakes have increased, but it doesn't feel like the stakes have increased at all in the movie.
No.
Yeah. So that's it for my weekly geekery, and I assume...
I do actually have one more.
Oh, do it. Sorry, throw it out.
One more related to last week.
Mm-hmm.
I finally subjected myself to the Suicide Squad.
Oh, was it the regular or extended cut?
I believe it was the regular. I don't know if that's for my benefit or not, but yeah, that was a mess.
Yes, it was. It was not a good movie. Did you go back and listen to the episode where some guy named Matt and I reviewed Suicide Squad?
Not yet, but I did watch that Everything Wrong With
the
link that
Cinema
you sent me.
Sins.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that I watched that already, but now having seen it, yeah. I will admit that while I was quote-unquote watching it, I was actually cleaning my apartment and reorganizing my pops. So a lot of the visual things that were horrible, I kind of missed out on.
That's probably for the best.
Yes. Like the Joker covering his mouth and laughing when he's got the lips tattooed on his hand. I didn't see that. I think I'm better off for it. Listening to it, I didn't think that Jared Leto was as bad as I was expecting him to be, but I still thought that the whole movie was just a hot mess.
Yeah.
I think Will Smith did the best he could, Margot Robbie did the best she could, and then everybody else was just kind of there.
I mean, Slipknot was my favorite part of the movie.
Oh, yeah, man. I mean, by far.
His character arc.
Such rich character depth. You wouldn't expect from the 80 seconds of screen time that he gets, but
he goes from being in the back of a car to being outside the car
to punching a woman
to getting his head blown off.
Yeah.
Like that's a rich, full character arc.
Yeah, and I think it was really done as a joke, because it's kind of like Captain Boomerang's like, yeah, I don't think these things work. And the guy's like, yeah, I guess not. He's like, yeah, you should probably just go ahead and try to escape. And he's like, yeah, I should totally do that. And then he just does it, and then they blow his head off. And then he's like, oh, I guess I'm wrong. And I'm like, really? Really? Like,
I think we need to start a brand new podcast where every episode, the whole point of the podcast is dedicated to the rich character arc of Slipknot in the Suicide Squad film.
Yeah,
I think we could easily get 3 years out of that.
I think each episode should have to focus on a single frame of the movie. That way we can get at least 80, 90 episodes out of it,
Perfect. Okay. Well, we're planning that. That's happening, but not really. You ready to shift into some news?
Let's do it.
All right. News. So the first thing that I have in the outline, and I apologize here, I didn't remove this piece of news from last week. I have no actual Marvel Comics news. I'm going to skip from Marvel straight to movie news with this little nugget. Apparently, Peter Dinklage.
Really? You had to lead
It
with
wasn't
little
intentional, Liam. It wasn't intentional. This piece of news, Peter Dinklage of Game of Thrones fame and other good movies, too.
The station agent.
Yeah, sure. Apparently signed on for Avengers 3, but there's no word on which character he's playing yet.
I do have a couple of theories in those regards.
Okay.
I would love to see him play Heracles. I would love to see him play a official Marvel version of Wolverine. He could be Thunderstrike. Remember Thunderstrike?
Okay.
Huh?
Of course. I love Thunderstrike. Yeah. Eric Masterson, the second Thor.
Yeah. Thor with a beard.
Yeah. And a ponytail.
And a ponytail.
And a leather sleeveless, it was a leather vest over the Thor costume. No, he was awesome.
90s badass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think he could play any of those characters equally well.
If we were being, what's the right term for this? Tallest? As far as what character he would play, just because he is a little person, is Puck from Alpha Flight.
Yep.
But that's going to be owned by Fox.
Yep.
because Fox owns all mutants and X-Men stuff. So, but the big question there is, do we have too many actors that are crossing over and confusing fans? Like, actors that are working in both, like having two Quicksilvers and then having Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool and Green Lantern, or having Chris Evans as Captain America and the Human Torch. I mean, I guess people kind of forget about him being the Human Torch.
Yeah, not me, though.
But it's that idea that Peter Dinklage, even though it wasn't a massive role, was just a few years ago in Days of Future Past.
Yeah, he was Bolivar Trask, who was also played a few years prior by Bill Duke.
Yeah.
Yeah. Giant African-American actor Bill Duke.
Well, I mean, look at the Batman series in Two-Face. Billy D. Williams versus...
That's true.
Yeah. But hooray, I mean, I love him. He's a great actor. I have never seen him in anything, even the movies and stuff. Though I will say I never saw... What was it? Was it Game On? What was the video game movie with Adam Sandler that he was in? I never saw that.
Oh, Pixels.
Pixels. I never saw him in Pixels.
No.
I never watched that movie.
I'm not willing to do modern day Sandler. I just don't care. I'm just not willing to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. But I guess hooray for having him in there. I'm just curious.
He needs a paycheck.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just curious if he's going to suit up as a hero, or if he's going to be, like Martin Freeman was in Civil War, where he just plays one of the government characters. That's an interesting piece of news. Two more things for Marvel movies. One, the animated Spider-Man film, which I've reported on, I don't remember how long ago it was when rumors started circulating about this one. It will now officially focus on Miles Morales. So, nice. It's not going to be in theaters until December of 2018, so it's going to be a while.
Yeah, that will be. And it'll be up against Star Wars.
Yeah, but it's just versus, like, the DC direct-to-DVD movies is they're actually going to do an animated movie in theaters.
Yeah. Which
I find really interesting. And beyond that, I love that they're doing Miles Morales. Like, good for them.
Yeah.
I guess their whole point is they want to focus on sort of the theme of that character's introduction, which is it doesn't matter who's under the mask. Like, Batman's done the same thing and stuff as well. And a lot of these sort of legacy characters, it's the desire to do what's right or to take up that mantle kind of thing. And I just wish we had more of that in comics, where we could actually say goodbye to characters entirely instead of continually bringing them back. But
yeah,
it is what it is. I guess they have to cash those checks too.
Yeah. And there are certain characters that just that character is such a well-developed character that it would be really, really hard to let them go, like, forever,
I guess, but it's one of those things where, like, I guess people are still writing Sherlock Holmes books every once in a while.
Yeah.
But, like, you have a huge number of the official, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle books, Sherlock Holmes novels, and that's it. And that's sort of considered the classic Sherlock Holmes. But you can keep reinventing the character and retelling versions of those stories because they've been doing it. Like, I think he's second only to Dracula.
Yeah.
In the number of times he's appeared in movies and stuff like that. So it's like, you can do that with Spider-Man. I'm pretty sure we've had enough classic Spider-Man stories over, the 50 years, whatever.
Yeah.
That
I'm thinking of Batman, personally. I just don't want them to take away my Bruce Wayne.
Dude, but you have 75 years of Bruce Wayne.
I know.
Like, but you're good. And they can just redo some of those classic stories from, like, the 40s, update them and just retell those stories again. And they could do that. They could start over, retell every single Batman story and just update it. You'll be dead by the time they get to the stuff that you grew up with.
So if they're updating from the 40s, would Captain America be punching Donald Trump or Putin in the face on the cover?
I would think it would have to be a foreign leader for that to work out quite right.
I guess it depends on how political the writers want to get with it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Finally, for our Marvel news, we got another Logan trailer.
Oh, yeah, we did.
And it's great.
It is.
It's great. The red band version is great.
I have watched both versions of this trailer like a combined dozen times. I just love it.
I had to rewatch it a couple times just right away, just to sort of say, oh, what did I see? Was that what I thought it was? Or now who's this guy kind of thing?
Yep.
And just Yeah, no, I look forward to that movie very much. It still has the same kind of feel, but it gives you a little more info. You get to see X-23, which clearly it's X-23 in action a little bit more.
And you get a wonderful Patrick Stewart joke.
Yes, in the red band version.
Yes.
No, it's not in the regular version because
No.
he swears. He drops an F-bomb.
It's wonderful. And I hope that this means it will be an R movie and not this is its one F-bomb in a PG-13 movie.
Right. But here's the thing about this. We are going to talk this Logan trailer to death next week, and we are going to dive into the history of X-23 next week. So I have the link in the show notes for this trailer, and once we get down to the poll list for next week, I will tell you what I suggest everybody read, because that is what we're going to dive into. So go watch this trailer over and over again.
Over and over.
Over and over.
Enjoy over and over.
Enjoy everything it has to offer you. And next week, that's all we're talking about.
And normally I do not care about trailers at all. I just do not care. I don't want to see it. Just like, let me get into a movie theater. I'll see some trailers there. Then when those movies come out, I'm like, oh yeah, oh yeah, that's good. But this trailer, I will just like wake up and be like, I think I want to watch that Logan trailer again.
Yeah.
And give it a couple of plays. So it's good.
It's a good one. It's a good one. So go down to the show notes or look it up on YouTube. See if you can't find the Red Band trailer as well. If, you're old enough to handle that sort of language.
Mm-hmm.
And that's next week. So, Liam, why don't you skip-it-a-bop-a-do us over to DC News? DC! I have actual comic book news on this one. First up, Superman. We have seen yet another costume.
What?
And, he's getting updated again. So we had the new 52 Superman, where he had like the high collar and that whole thing, right?
Yep.
Where the cape was just sort of there, but every character had to have a high collar because it's Jim Lee, and that's his bag. And then we got the Superman Rebirth Superman, where the Superman from like the 90s and 2000s, the pre-Flashpoint one, they killed off the new 52 Superman, and the old one took his place. So they had a costume which was sort of like a weird middle ground that also kind of looked like the movie costume, because of course it needs to look like the movie costume.
Of course.
But it had like blue boots in addition to a blue suit and like weird cuffs, and it was a little too monochromatic. It had the cape and all that. And now we are seeing that they are doing yet another shift. And now I think they're at what I would consider a good stopping point with the costume. It's the tucked in cape, so it has the wide neck on it. He doesn't have the weird cuffs anymore. It's just the regular blue shirt, I guess for lack of a better word. Blue pants, still no red trunks, but he has the red boots again. And then instead of the red trunks, his belt is red, but it still has like a yellow buckle. So it still has that yellow and red at the midriff.
Now, are the boots cuffed or are the boots normal?
They have the sort of little V-shape thing at the top.
Okay.
Like they're normal Superman boots.
But they don't look like old-timey, like belongs in a pirate's tail kind of leather.
No, they're not
boots.
they're not like old Captain America boots.
Good.
With the big cuff. I don't think Superman's ever had those outside of maybe in an Elseworlds tale.
Okay.
He's always had the normal ones. So, but again, like with everything, this brings up the question of, like, as a fan of the 90s, DC stuff, because that's what I grew up with, I feel a sense of comfort seeing a costume that is closer to that. But is it okay for them to buckle under fan pressure and give the fans what they want? Or is it better for them to say, no, this is what we're going to do, and just put up with it. Give us 5 years, give us 3 years, give us 1 year, and let us do it this way so we can prove to you that we're headed in the right direction. Because I feel like it's been less than a year with this Superman costume, and now they're announcing it's going to change in April. So, thoughts?
I guess I would say give them what they want, because unless the costume, for some reason, plays part of some of the storytelling that they're doing, it doesn't really matter what he looks like. So I guess it should just kind of be geared towards what the fans like, or what they're more comfortable with. And like, obviously, it is kind of a ridiculous thing to have, briefs on the outside of their pants and such. But again, we've talked about this in the past. That's kind of a throwback to the old strong men of the 20s and such.
It's women now who will wear shorts over leggings.
Yeah.
It's the exact same thing. It was just what men would wear as exercise stuff back then.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, I don't have such a problem with that, but I guess a modern audience does. So, if they give me something that looks a bit more like what I'm used to when I look at, Superman in my mind's eye, I guess I would be more comfortable with that. But again, I'm not buying new comic books, and I don't buy Superman, so it doesn't affect me all that much.
Yeah, not nearly as much as this story would. Ha ha! Smooth transfer.
Whoa!
Back up. Smooth transfer. DC are hiking the prices of their comics. Some of them are already expensive.
Yeah.
Like, I think All-Star Batman is like $5 right now per issue. But a number of DC books that are $2.99 are now being increased to $3.99. And then with that $4 you're paying for every issue, they are including a digital code so that you can download a digital copy of the book as well to have on your tablet or computer, which basically gives you that ability to say, hey, Liam, I bought this issue. Here's the download code. You should go read this as well, I guess. It allows you to share, because I've read online comments where people talk about how they like having that option. This is why I go in trades.
Yeah. 100% trade.
Yeah, $4 per issue, or, I can, if it's, say, Image, you could have 4 or 5 issues, whatever it is, and it's $10 for the trade.
Yeah.
But yeah, so hooray, kids, if you want to go out and buy your comics, which is the reason that I think things like Marvel Unlimited are such a great idea, is you do what like Void does, or what I think Beach does it as well, where you just go and you get a subscription when it's like buy 1 month, get 1 month free, and then you just spend 2 months binging comics for a while, and then you step away because they don't have, things that are less than 6 months old. So it's 6-month-old comics and then on. But you can just go and just binge an old comic series or something, or, up to 6 months ago on a modern comic series for like $7, $8. And that makes so much more sense.
Oh, yeah.
Because unless you're a collector, you don't need all those physical issues.
Yeah.
You just want the story.
And really, what's the point of collecting modern comic books? It's not like they're going to be worth something in 10 years, if you buy
unlike pop vinyl figures.
Pop vinyl figures are worth something currently, Mark. Rob,
I'm sorry, what's my name? Mark.
I've been defending my opinions recently.
Okay.
But like if you're buying a variant cover, or like something that's like signed by the author or the artist or something, I could see that being worth collecting. But I mean, going out and buying just the new comic books that are on the rack now, it's kind of past the point where that would make sense from a this will be valuable someday kind of perspective.
Yeah, I think the model of the industry is becoming a little outdated, but at the same time, those individual issue purchases is how the artists and the writers are making money from the big companies, and how the company knows whether to keep them around. It's their version of ratings for TV shows, which with Nielsen is also outdated. That's why they still do it month to month, instead of saying, sure, we'll pay you to write 6 issues or whatever, and we'll put it in a trade and we'll release it as a trade, which, I'm sorry, personal opinion, I think is better. I have my comics I collected, but you collect them just because it's a thing you like.
Yeah.
It's like with your pop vinyl figures, I look at it very much like people buying Beanie Babies. Anybody who's buying them with the thought of selling them later for more money and considering them an investment either needs to act really quickly and follow the marketplace very closely and buy and sell with the goal of getting rid of all of them, or you buy them because you like them. I've never bought a comic book thinking it was going to be worth a lot of money later on, unless I did when I was like 6, and people were actually selling comics for a lot of money. I bought them because I wanted to keep reading the story, and it was worth the $2 or whatever, each month to do it. And now I just, I prefer digital. Plus there's things, and I don't know if this is across the board, but sometimes older issues of a digital comic are like $1. Like when I went and was looking at the Black Monday Murders, like issue 3 at the time was, $5 or whatever, which is fine because it's a 50-page comic. But then issues 1 and 2 were only $1 a pop. And that's fine. Like, I'm happy to spend $1 for a digital version of a comic. It saves them the printing costs, so long as the artist and writer are, getting their fair share of it. But in any case, so bad news for DC fans out there. I suggest looking into trades, I guess. I mean, it's sad.
And my favorite thing about the trades is that they don't have the artwork interrupted by ads.
Also nice. Mm-hmm.
It's unbearable when they break up like a nice spread with a whole page of advertisement on one side.
But what a wonderful time capsule. Like, I go back and read my old issues with, like, the handheld Tiger Double Dragon game. Yeah.
Some of those old nostalgic ones, like the Hostess ones with the Hulk or Thor
yeah.
or
I'm
whatever,
talking post that, though. I'm talking 80s and 90s. I mean, the Hostess stuff kind of faded away.
That was 70s and 80s, but I think that played right up into the early 90s.
I do have an ad that's kind of like that for Brock's Rocks.
Okay.
If you remember Brock's Rocks.
Vaguely.
Yeah, it's just awful candy, but their whole advertisement was about a
right.
dinosaur eating rocks.
Right.
You're eating rocks? They're basically like larger, less good jelly beans.
Yeah, that's right. I remember those now. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I bought them, though.
I totally
I'm pretty
did.
sure the comic ads worked. I'm pretty sure I went and bought a pack and was like, these are terrible.
Didn't they have like kind of a harder shell on the outside to simulate the rock?
I think so.
Then it was like gooey and like a jelly bean on the inside.
Yeah.
They totally
Gross.
got me with those too.
Let's move on to DC television news. We talked last week when we were running down everything that's coming out about Powerless, which I was so confused because I thought it was a Marvel show, it was a DC show, and I said it was on ABC. I was incorrect. It is NBC, which makes so much more sense.
Yes, it does.
I don't know why I thought it was ABC. It's possible the website I was using had misprinted it, but I will gladly take responsibility on myself for that one as well. Anyway, Alan Tudyk is in the show, and hooray for Alan Tudyk. Oh, that's the thing I didn't mention. I watched Con Man this week.
Oh, okay.
I knew there was something I left out. I watched all the episodes of Con Man, Alan Tudyk's show about basically being a fictional version of himself, a pilot from a early canceled sci-fi show, and that's all anybody knows him as, and he can't get any other acting gigs, and he goes from convention to convention, while his buddy, who played the captain on that show, has new shows and movies, and everybody loves him.
Sounds pretty familiar.
Yeah. It was entertaining. In any case, Alan Tudyk is in this show Powerless, and apparently he plays Bruce Wayne's cousin.
Dwayne Wayne?
I don't believe it's Dwayne Wayne. I didn't write down the character name because I just wrote it's dumb.
It is. It's very
in
dumb.
The outline. Now I guess it makes sense. Unless it's like a super distant cousin, I could see that being funny because he's constantly playing up. My cousin is Bruce Wayne. They're like, it's like your third cousin, twice removed.
And truthfully, if you are Bruce Wayne and your parents get murdered, but you have extended family, why wouldn't you want to reach out to them and like maybe not go the whole avenging orphan route and instead
being raised by your butler rather than your uncle?
Yeah. So it just seems really weird that they would just, he had other family, but they're not involved in his life at all. Or Wayne Enterprises has nothing to do with them, even though their name is Wayne.
Right.
It's just an unnecessary tangential connection.
Other thing, we were talking also about all the animated stuff and stuff coming out on CW Seed and the Justice League Dark animated movie. I guess CW is also doing an animated Constantine, and I believe it's, again, going to be voiced by the actor from the television show that was on NBC. And it's, again, going to be on the streaming platform, which I think will be okay. Like, I don't know if that means they're going to relax their own standards and practices and allow them the chance to do some darker material, or maybe not serialized, but not as procedural as the NBC one.
Maybe get a cigarette or two in there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we'll see. I mean, if they think at all it's that kids are going to be around, I don't think they'll let him smoke, even though that's part of the character.
Yeah, a huge part of that character.
Well, one of his biggest storylines was getting cancer.
Yeah. I mean, the Constantine movie that we are all familiar with focused on that.
Oh, did it? I saw it once.
Yeah, I honestly really enjoyed that movie because it's got Peter Stormare as the devil, and
Mhm.
he plays my favorite cinematic representation of the devil.
Oh, fair enough. Not Al
Yeah.
Pacino?
No, definitely not. I'm not going to get all religious on you here or anything, but it just, in this movie, it shows the devil as being this real slimy guy who's like, he knows you intimately, you know,
Yeah.
and just kind of sidles up to him, and he's got like bare feet with tar dripping off of him, and he's
Oh, that's right.
dressed
Yeah.
in this like dirty suit, and I really like that version of the devil, you know, someone who's not physically intimidating, but somebody who's just slimy and just real greasy and makes you feel uncomfortable, and that he knows all your darkest, nastiest stuff, you know. So I like that version of the devil quite a bit.
Okay. Move on to movie news.
Sure.
I got two pieces of movie news. I'll throw this one out first. Shazam, which is Captain Marvel, but they call him Shazam now.
Now, is that the movie that had Shaquille O'Neal in it in the 90s that everybody's talking about?
No.
Or that's
was...
the movie with what's his name?
Because that's the one everybody thinks was Shaquille O'Neal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or no,
Sinbad.
It was.
Sinbad.
Yes, it was Sinbad. That's right. Yeah, Kazam.
Yeah.
I am Kazam, or whatever it was. Yeah, no, Shazam. Shazam is the little kid, Billy Bastion, who says the name Shazam, and it turns him into basically a Superman type character.
And Shazam is actually an anagram too, because each letter is supposed to represent one of the gods that he takes a power from.
Yep. So it's the strength of whatever, and the speed of
Heracles.
Hermes, and the
the wisdom of Zeus.
Wisdom of Zeus. Yeah. Maybe it's speed of Mercury there.
Yeah.
I always thought it was weird that they made his name Shazam, because originally Shazam was the name of the wizard who gave him his power. So by calling on the wizard, he got his power. That made sense. But for him to call himself Shazam, what's your name? Shazam. Whoops, now I'm a kid again. I don't know. Whatever. I understand why they don't want to do Captain Marvel, especially with Marvel making a Captain Marvel movie.
Yeah.
And that was its own thing that we're not going to get into this week. Point being, the big news for Shazam is simply that The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, is going to be playing Black Adam, who is basically the evil version of Captain Marvel. I'm going to have trouble calling him Shazam. I think the old man, sitting at the Rock of Eternity, where from Captain Marvel gets his powers. In any case, so he plays the villain, but now apparently that's going to be split up into two movies so that he can get a standalone Black Adam movie. This is a bad idea. I'm going to say this right out. I get it. I like that you want to evolve your character, but you know what happened the last time The Rock got his own standalone villain movie?
Ugh.
The Scorpion King.
Yep. And that launched some bad sequels, and even in the movie that introduced the Scorpion King, the Mummy 2 or whatever, they did that really bad job of putting The Rock's face made out of CGI onto the body of the scorpion.
Yeah, there was no reason for him to be a monster. There was no reason for him to be a monster in that movie. It should have just been The Rock. Like, he's a big guy.
Huge.
He's imposing.
Yeah. Give him a sword or a club or an axe or something and done. I'm already intimidated.
Yeah. So whatever. Apparently there's two of those. I mean, that can change. It's going to be years down the road. But right now we're getting two different Shazam movies. One Shazam and one just about Black Adam, who is an interesting character. Don't get me wrong. Like, especially in some of like the JLA stuff and that, where they really evolved him into this, like, you know, leader of a sovereign nation kind of thing. Like, he's a dictator, but he protects his nation from the rest of the world. Like, so there's things to do with that character. I just don't know that that's a movie we need, and it would probably be rather controversial. At any point, the other piece of... Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
It'll also be directed by David Ayer.
Just because?
Just because.
Other piece of Warner Brothers, DC movie news, rather, is that Warner Brothers now apparently has a short list of actors they want to talk to play Hal Jordan in the Green Lantern Corps movie. Keep in mind, no one has been spoken to yet, so this is all, you know, rumor mill stuff, but since it's you and it's me and we're Green Lantern kids, here's their short list. Ryan Reynolds, again.
Why? Why are you doing this to yourself?
Tom Cruise.
Too old.
Because he played a pilot in a movie.
Yeah. 50 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, honestly, it depends. Like, if they're bringing, I guess if it's just Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart, then yeah. But if they wanted to do like an older Hal Jordan and introduce, Kyle Rayner and stuff, I mean, I know some people aren't fans of Tom Cruise or fans of his acting or whatever, but it's not like the dude ain't in shape. I thought, what was the Tomorrow movie, Edge of Tomorrow? I thought that was pretty good.
I enjoyed that.
Yeah, I just don't see him as Hal Jordan.
No, definitely
but
not.
It depends on their portrayal. Joel McHale.
Again, what?
Why? Yeah.
I love Joel McHale and so many other things, but
not as Hal Jordan.
Definitely
There's
not.
a pattern here. The next choice, Bradley Cooper.
Yeah. Again, no.
No.
He's not. You don't need a wisecracking version of Hal Jordan. You just don't.
Because they want to do Lethal Weapon in space.
Yeah.
So they're going to have to make Hal Jordan, they think, is this wisecracking, Mel Gibson character, the crazy off-the-chain test pilot.
Yeah.
And then Jon Stewart is going to be the super disciplined Marine. Speaking of the armed forces, another smooth transition. The next choice, Armie Hammer, my favorite of the whole list.
I haven't seen him in anything. I just now had to look him up on IMDb just to be able to have a face to place with it.
But I think he looks like a Hal Jordan to me.
I guess.
And I think I haven't seen Man from U.N.C.L.E. or any of that, but my guess would be if he's...
You haven't seen The Lone Ranger?
And I never saw The Lone Ranger.
But so many people did.
I know.
I thought that was one of those, cultural zeitgeist movies that we all just went to.
Everybody was... Westerns made a big comeback. Everybody was dressed like Tonto. It was great.
It was.
It was good. It really opened up that...
Really tasteful dialogue about Native American headdresses and, Hollywood whitewashing.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Yeah.
But of that list, the last one is Jake Gyllenhaal, which again, no thanks.
Yeah,
he's not Hal Jordan.
Yeah, you don't. I guess I understand from their perspective why they want a star, but I feel like get somebody who's a little more unknown who fits the character better, as opposed to just like, well, let's see, who is in Hollywood who has vaguely dark features and might be able to tell a joke.
Yeah,
or
just this. Who is today's Nathan Fillion? That's not Nathan Fillion. Who's a younger Nathan Fillion? Because clearly, had we the choice back in the day,
oh man,
he's Hal Jordan.
He is.
Like he has just enough of that pompous, full of himself, the way he carries himself kind of thing that makes some people hate him. Like the wife is not a fan at all.
Yeah, that's a shame
of him. That's why they had him voice Hal Jordan in some of the animated stuff. Is because it fits because that is Hal Jordan. He is not incredibly likable because he's supposed to be a bit of a jerk because he's so full of himself.
Yep.
And then the idea is he gets humbled when he realizes we're not alone in the universe, and now you have this massive responsibility, and that sort of shapes him into a better person, kind of. Like, that, to me, is the Hal Jordan arc.
Yeah.
And that's what we should get. So I don't know who that actor is. I mean, Fletch would know. Fletch is amazing with actor names, but I am not as good.
They should just give it to him anyway. Just... Like, I know he's getting a little older now, but just do it. Like, if you're gonna do the older version of Hal Jordan and the younger version of Jon Stewart and have him kind of showing him the ropes, and you can totally do that. Just let it be Nathan Fillion. It would be so much more fun.
It makes sense.
Yeah,
That's all. You
would have people go to the theater to see that movie just because you gave them the fan choice for the role. Like, so many people would love that.
Patrick Stewart as Professor X.
Oh, yeah.
It was obvious from forever.
Yeah.
And when they cast him, everybody said, great, we're going to go see this movie now. Nobody really knew much about Hugh Jackman.
And he's been in, like, 15 movies since then as that character.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, there's something to be said. Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool. There's something to be said for obvious casting sometimes.
Hugh Jackman as Logan, like...
No, no, I'm not giving you that one. He built into that role. Everybody didn't look at him and be like, the musical guy? He's playing Wolverine. Like, people were like, I guess we could see it. But
I guess I'm saying, like, as of the first movie, he just became that character.
Yeah. But I'm saying people where you cast him and you're like, yes, that makes Jack Nicholson as the Joker.
Yeah.
Where ahead of time, that they're going to do a great job.
Yeah. And what's his name? Chris Evans. He makes a pretty solid Captain America.
Yeah, well, I would say Robert Downey
Tony
Jr.'s
Stark.
Iron Man.
Yeah.
Like, when that casting was announced, because they had to fight tooth and nail to get that casting. And when it was announced, like, the comic book world was like, thank you.
Yeah.
And that's why that movie was so popular, because you already had the dedicated fan base you know was going to go see a comic book movie, but they were so excited for it, and they brought their friends, and then because they cast it the way they knew the fans would like it, it worked out well for everybody. I don't know. Not a thing we need to dwell on, but of those choices, Armie Hammer is the only guy that I would entertain. I don't think we need to keep going with Ryan Reynolds.
I would agree to that only because I have no expectations for him.
Yeah, exactly. He's not as known.
And
so
not known by me at all, so...
There you go.
Yeah.
Last DC note, we have a new story trailer for the Injustice 2 video game, which I believe looks like it introduces Brainiac as the main villain.
Seemed that
and
way.
then it looks like the pre-orders let you play as Darkseid. Link is in the show notes. I think I played the demo for the first one, and that's it. So, I don't know.
Yeah.
I read the comic. The comic was great. The first couple of years of the comic, as they call it. They did like 5 years or 6 years, and then they're doing one right now that focuses on Harley Quinn, takes place during the game, I guess, itself. The first couple of years of the comic were fantastic because you could do what you wanted with any character not in the game, and that was fantastic. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah. Yeah, I played the first game, and, I'm not a huge fighting game kind of guy, but I had a little fun with it.
Good. I'm going to do a one note for indie stuff, things not from the big two, as we call them. We're getting another new Witchblade television show, or rather, I mean, at least a pilot. I don't know. But I saw something saying that they were doing a TV reboot of Witchblade. For those that don't know, this was a comic that was huge in the 90s, mostly because of the art.
The TNA.
And very much so. So it's the story's about a female cop who finds a bracelet that turns into like full body armor and in the process shreds off all of her other clothes. So she's like impossibly naked kind of thing. Like if you are an adult, look up Witchblade cosplay and you'll see what I mean. Because there are people out there who have pulled off the look from the comics. In the previous show, they did do one show already on TNT. And then they did an anime I've never seen. But from the posters for the show, I believe it just formed like a gauntlet, like a big glove instead.
Yeah.
Instead of doing the full body thing, which is smart because I'm sorry, there's no reason for that. Like if it clads you in armor, awesome. But it was more like armor that just barely covers the parts you physically, legally can't show in public.
Yeah. And leaves all your most vulnerable points wide open.
Yeah, your belly is wide open, your neck is wide open, so I never got into it. I guess even as a youngster, that wasn't really my thing. Don't know if it's an actual good comic or not. I think Ron Mars wrote Witchblade for a while, though, which would make me curious to read it.
Oh, and it would completely turn me in the opposite direction.
Because see, but that's a Green Lantern issue.
He's a hack, Rob. He's a hack.
That's editorial. I'm going to have him on the show, and you're going to have that conversation with him where he tells you that the fact that he replaced Hal Jordan with Kyle Rayner is because he had to. And he was actually a new writer at that point. It was the first stuff he had ever written, I think, for comics. And,
it shows.
And so they brought him in. I liked his run. And his run on Silver Surfer was good. He wrote Superboy for a while and then went and did CrossGen, which I've heard is really good as well. Be angry with the editors. Be angry with DC top brass. Just like the reason we don't like Age of Ultron, we don't blame Joss Whedon. We believe he did the best he could with the situation that was handed down by Marvel. Yes?
Sure.
I'll take it.
I don't have a strong opinion on these Marvel movies, so.
Okay. Well, why don't you pull us into the poll list?
Ba 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 boo. Ba 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 boo.
Pull list. You have to say the thing. That's part of the fun. Is you have to figure out a way to work in the segment name, and we'll work on it. Nice and easy this week. For the poll list, I just want you guys to think about one thing, that Logan trailer and X-23. The trade that I'm going to suggest is X-23 Innocence Lost. It is not technically the first appearance of X-23, we'll get into that, but it is her origin story, and from the look of the films, I feel like that's the closest thing that you're going to get to a good background on who that character is before the movie. I think everything probably after that book is not going to apply to the movie. Because it clearly, when they come looking for the girl, and it's not like she's suited up and a member of the X-Men or anything like that. So I don't think you need to read modern X-23 stuff. So X-23, Innocence Lost. I will see if I can find it on ComiXology and throw up a link for you guys. I have a copy on my shelf. It was another random pickup. I thought the character was interesting, bought it at my local comic shop, and made me a fan. I went on to read some of the standalone series. It didn't hold on to me, but big fan of the character, especially the X-Force stuff, which was wonderfully, violent and whatever. Liam, I'm going to loan you my copy, and we will read X-23 Innocence Lost and talk about who X-23 is. That's next week's show. Look at that. And we actually know what it is. Instead of the usual be like, we'll see you next week. All right, so now is the time where we're going to cut over to the it's not really an interview, but we're going to cut over to the segment that I did with Void a few days ago, where he tells us about Batman, the Telltale Series. So let's cut over to that right now. Topic of the week. This week's topic of the week is Batman, the Telltale Series. Or did I say that right? Is that the right thing? I'm joined by Void from the Geek to Geek podcast. Hi, Void.
Hi, I'm here. You did say it right. It is Batman, the Telltale Series.
Perfect. Okay. And now we had spoken previously where the next time you pick up a superhero video game is you have to come and give us a review of it. So tell us first about the game itself. Tell us about Batman, the Telltale Series.
Yeah, so I really liked this one. If I didn't like it, I wouldn't have come. I would have just told you it was a bad game and not worth our time.
Right.
But so this was one I was kind of sad I didn't play last year because it may have broken into my top few for the year. It wouldn't have been up near number one, but it probably would have made my top 10 list because it was really good. I played it over the break, like right after we had recorded our episode about, our top things for the year. So it was cool. I'm glad that I had waited until all the chapters came out. So I guess I should ask, have you played a Telltale game before? Do you know the structure of them and kind of the general feel?
For the most part, yes. I played, I think the first episode. Are they called episodes?
They are, yeah.
Each part. So I want to say I played either the first episode or part of the first episode of the Walking Dead one. And they do seasons as well, right? So it's seasons and episodes. So I would have played Season 1, Episode 1, because that came out as a demo for Xbox 360. And then I played the demo or the first episode or whatever it was for the Game of Thrones Telltale game. And that's it.
Okay.
So I've played it enough to where I think I get the idea, but just for people that don't know, why don't you kind of tell us what the format of these games is, because it is very different.
Yeah, so you kind of have the baseline. And they're definitely a kind of role-playing game, not like the RPG genre where you have leveling and like skills and gear and that kind of thing. I'm talking about like actually playing a role of a character. And it's closer to like an adventure game or almost like those old point-and-click games, but without like the puzzle element. It's really just trying to tell a story and give you interesting decisions. And that's like the whole game. And the structure is what you said. They almost always will have a season, and so you can buy like the season pass or season pack or whatever they call it for that particular game up front and play them as they come out, or you can buy the episodes individually or story chapters individually, whatever they call it for that particular game. It changes game to game. But it's almost always like 4 to 6 episodes, and that will be one season of it. So I waited until this game went on sale, and I picked up the whole season bundle or pack or whatever with the Steam sale over the holidays when it was on sale for the Steam Winter Sale. And I played all of the episodes basically back to back. I didn't do it in one play session. I played like one episode a night, which ended up being really good. So I played it in it was like 4 or 5 nights. I got towards the end and I really wanted to see the end. But yeah, that's kind of the core of a Telltale game is they will give you story and interactions, and you can maybe like kind of explore deeper if you want to in a couple areas, but it's mostly you reacting to what's happening around your character and playing the role of your character through choices. And a lot of the time there's a very it's a very obvious choice between A or B, left or right type of thing, where if you choose this, it's going to impact the story for the rest of the time. And like you were talking about Walking Dead. In Walking Dead, I think episode 1, is that where you have to choose one character that lives and one that dies?
I think so. Or there's somebody that's trapped, and you have the option of whether or not to help them or take somebody else and escape with them or something. Like zombies are coming and somebody gets trapped, and you have to make that decision of whether you're going to stop to help that person, and you don't know if they're even going to live anyway, but it could, make that decision of, is this person going to still be around or not?
Yeah, and that's kind of their bread and butter with this type of game that they've made. And all of them have sort of that same structure where there will be decisions, and some of them it feels like you're making a big decision, and then you realize that either decision would have kind of wrapped back into the same thing right away. And other times you make a decision and it's like that, where you might lose a character for the entire rest of the game, even if there's 4 episodes left of it, and you have like 8 hours of content in front of you. So it makes you question every decision, even if it doesn't end up being a big one, because you never know which ones are the huge ones and which ones aren't.
Okay, so for people who read Choose Your Own Adventure as kids, this is literally just a more interactive version of that, but not so simple, because it's not always, I know I don't really remember much of The Walking Dead because that was, a couple of years ago, but I believe with the Game of Thrones, it's also to the point, you need to react, this guy's about to swing a sword at you, so you need to hit this button now in order to duck as well, otherwise it's just game over and the main character dies. So it's a much more interactive, and you kind of have to be on your heels a little bit, version of a Choose Your Own Adventure book. But certainly in the sense that you pick a path, that path is going to take you, further down the narrative, and it might be a completely different, or at least substantially different narrative than you would have before.
Right, and sometimes it's a decision that you have the time to think about, you can give it as much consideration as you want, and then other times it's like that. It's, even talking specifically about Batman, if you're in a fight, right, and you have to, excuse me, you're in a fight and you have to react to what the other guys are doing, and it becomes sometimes fast button presses in the middle of a fight or an action sequence, but it's balanced out by the times where you can take your time and explore and piece together, for Batman, a detective setting, right? There are a few different places in the game where you come on basically a crime scene that you're trying to figure out what happened, and you kind of go into this detective vision mode. And it's not at all the way that they treated detective vision in the Arkham games, which I know a lot of people have played. I like the Arkham games a lot, but it still gave a very good sense of you have to look at all the objects in the room, and then you have to link together the ones that logically make sense. Oh, this thing interacted with this. And if you get it correct, it will kind of play back what Bruce is putting together in his head had happened. And once you have everything linked together correctly, then it'll go to him talking through the entire crime and what happened in what order. And I thought that was really cool too, because it definitely got to the detective part of Batman, which Batman games don't always do.
But then if you can't figure it out, I've played some of the Sherlock Holmes games where the puzzles they put in front of you are ridiculous, and you can't figure it out without looking it up online, or I can't anyway.
Right, and that's one of the reasons I liked it, is that it's not a puzzle game. It's not a crazy brain teaser like that. It's one that you can logically put together without any trouble. And honestly, if you really can't figure it out, which you'll be able to just by reading what he says as he's looking around the crime scene, but if you can't, you could do trial and error and still have it figured out in under 2 minutes. You're not going to get blocked by that.
Oh, okay. Because that was going to be my next question of that sort of thing. Well, then tell us sort of in general then, now that we kind of know what a Telltale game is, what is this specific Telltale game? What sets this one apart? Is it the plot? Is it the characters? How does a Batman story fit into the Telltale model? Obviously you gave us the example of the detective scene, but in what other ways does Batman fit well or not well into the Telltale sort of model of gameplay?
Yeah, so the biggest thing, okay, I should just talk about the setting in general. It's definitely a Batman universe that you would recognize, but it's not one that's directly connected to anything else we know, right? It's not part of the Arkham universe. It's not part of the comic universe. It's its own thing, kind of sitting to the side. But as soon as you get in, you will recognize it. The Batcave is there, the Batcomputer. Some of his enemies are established, but a lot of them aren't. So it's kind of like a fresh world where they can establish enemies over time. his origin story is touched on, but it's not lingered on, which I appreciate because I hate when they linger on an origin story. So it's kind of just like, here's a fresh Batman setting for them to play around in. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's what you're going into. And the coolest thing that I thought that would made this a good fit for Telltale is that you can be Bruce Wayne or you can be Batman, and a lot of the time you get to pick, and either one is a totally viable option, which is very different from a game like the Arkham games, where it's assumed that Batman is who he is, and Bruce Wayne is like a person that he is, his persona that he puts on. And really, in the Arkham games, Bruce might as well not exist. Like, he doesn't matter in those games. Or, like, you know, if you look at Nolan's Batman, Batman is definitely the real person, and Bruce Wayne is a persona. And this, I just liked that you can play it either way. So, because I had played so many video games, and a lot of the movies lately have been, you know, I'm Batman, and Bruce Wayne is this afterthought, I decided to play this as Bruce Wayne. Bruce is the real character, and Batman is the persona that he puts on. And that's how I played my game. But you could play it either way, and either way is totally viable. And I thought that was just an amazing choice on their part.
Yeah, that's really interesting because just in my mind, like, there is the Bruce Wayne scene in Arkham City at the very beginning. And it's sort of that idea that if you're Bruce Wayne, you have to let the bad guys slap you around a little bit because you can't let on that you're actually Batman. If you slip out of the handcuffs and immediately take everybody down, they're going to know something is up. So I'd be very interested to see what that would be like to play through the whole thing as Bruce Wayne, because I would just imagine it would limit your options of what you're able to do. Did you find that to be a rewarding experience to play the game as Bruce Wayne?
Yes, but I should say, there are parts where you have to approach it as Bruce Wayne, and there are parts where you have to approach it as Batman. But there are, I want to say, at least 3 distinct parts where there's a situation involving somebody that has a personal relationship with Bruce Wayne and also has an adversarial relationship with Batman, or not even necessarily. I think one of them is Commissioner Gordon.
Okay, because I was just gonna stop you and be like, Catwoman.
Yeah. So like Catwoman is in this game. So is Catwoman, Two-Face, Commissioner Gordon. Like, you know, you can kind of see how all of those work, right?
Sure.
Yeah. So a lot of those situations you can choose to approach it as Bruce or as Batman and see it play out different ways. And anytime I had a chance, I would just do it as Bruce because I thought it was more interesting and it was a better fit.
Okay. Would you go back and play it again and make the other decision and play it as Batman? Did this game have replay value for you?
It does if you're super into the story. I'm the kind of person that once I play through a story-heavy game once that's very decision-heavy like this, I feel like that's my playthrough. And that's kind of how the story is in my mind forever. I ran into this problem the other week. I was trying to go back and play the Mass Effect trilogy again, and I love that trilogy, but I had played through that already, right? And that's like tens an hour. I don't even know. It's probably like 70 plus hours of my life, maybe closer to 100 between that whole trilogy. But that was my playthrough, right? That's the story that I played. And I went back and I was like, hey, maybe I'll try different options this time. I tried the other gender of Shepard, who's the main character of Mass Effect. And I tried to do like the opposite path because I usually go Paragon, which is like the good guy path. I tried to go Renegade, which is kind of like the badass path for lack of a better term. And it just, I couldn't do it because it didn't feel like my playthrough anymore. And so I feel like that's what would happen with Batman. If I went back and tried to play it, I'd be like, oh, this is like an alternate story. This is fan fiction. This isn't what really happened. I know what happened because I already experienced it. But if you are the kind of person that wants to experience a story multiple different ways, you definitely could go through this and get different results by playing it different ways.
Okay. I do find that interesting, though, because it seems like the point of these games, just like a choose-your-own-adventure book, is the ability to go back through and make different is to go back through and make different decisions so that it has replay value. Like, it seems like the entire purpose of the game outside of the first narrative is to have that ability to go back and make different decisions to impact the story. So I find it interesting. I mean, I know it has to do with you personally, but that it doesn't necessarily have that replay value. I guess that kind of brings it to that big question, though, which is, what did you think of the game? And I ask you that on a couple different levels. So before you actually get into it, obviously there's just, it's a video game. Did you enjoy playing it? Was it worth the money and the time that you put into it? but I'm also curious, as somebody who I believe has seen the other, Batman movies out there, and maybe have you played the Arkham games?
I have. I've beaten all of them, yeah.
Okay, so you at least have an idea of what else is out there as far as what we'll call quality Batman gaming, because there was the old, Nintendo and Super Nintendo games that were terrible.
Oh, I've played some of those too, but yes, that's a huge dip in quality. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. So, because for me as a comic book fan, obviously the ability to step into Batman's boots, is very cool, and that's what the Arkham games provided. So I'm wondering what this game would give me that the others don't, that would be worth my time and money. So with that in mind, what did you think of the game in general?
Okay, so it's probably better right up front to say what it's not. It's not like a beat 'em up action game, right? You're not going to be stalking people stealthily like you are in Arkham, setting up ambushes, doing like the very action oriented, gadget heavy version of Batman. That's not this game. This is a role playing game. You are taking on the role of Bruce or the role of Batman or both, however you want to divide up that. And in that respect, I think that this is the best Batman game out there for being able to actually take on the role of Batman as a person and not just as like an action hero, I guess would be the way that I put it. Because I love the Arkham games. Like, if you want a beat 'em up that has lots and lots of action and, these intricate combos and a huge open world to explore, and you encounter every single one of Batman's enemies in every single game somehow because they always escape, and they have the new hook for Arkham stuff, go play Arkham games, right? Arkham City, Arkham Knight, even the first one, they're all really, really good for that. But if you just want to take on the role of Batman in a story that's more than I have to go beat up the bad guys, I have to defeat the bad guys because they're bad and they're escaped, this is the game for you, right? This is the game where you can take on the role of Bruce and Batman and develop it over time and work on like some of Bruce's interpersonal relationships and approach some situations as Batman. And you do get action sequences, but they always serve the narrative. It's never just random thugs that you beat up all the time like you would in Arkham to just like get through the level. And so for my money, I think this is the best Batman story that there is out there in video game form right now. And this is the best way to take on the role of Batman that you can get.
Okay. I find that very interesting. And I very much bet that there's some people listening who just heard the word interpersonal relationships, or the phrase interpersonal relationships, and it's like, oh, yeah, no, that's not a game I want to play.
Yeah, and that's fine. But I mean, like, Catwoman is in this game, and this is probably my favorite iteration of Catwoman that I've ever seen. Like, it's done very, very well. And the interactions with Commissioner Gordon are really interesting. There's some stuff going on with Batman's past, like Bruce's past with his family, that really adds a twist to this particular universe. I don't want to give it away because it becomes a big part of the story. But it involves him and, like, his father's past and Alfred and things that Alfred knows that he doesn't know. Stuff along those lines. So there's some tension that can be there with Alfred depending on which way you play it. It's all of these little things, and they all add up because it's like every character you encounter that's a big part of the story ends up having multiple, like, they just have big stakes in it. There are crisscrossing narratives that weave together really well, and you won't find that in the Arkham games. But yeah, if you want to be the Batman that goes and beats people up and stalks them around and executes perfectly whatever stealth takedowns and stuff, go play the Arkham games because they're good. Like, I'm not taking away from that. The Arkham games are great for that. That's just not this game. This is the game for Batman's relationships and interpersonal stuff, like I said, and I loved it for that.
How is the voice acting then? Because as I'm thinking about it being more of a talkie, for lack of a better word, if it's more about the relationships and conversations, is it recognizable cast? Do we get some of the people returning from the other games?
I didn't recognize any of the cast, but okay. I also was never taken out of it from bad voice acting, if that answers your question.
Sure. So the story is not done, though, is that correct? If there's only the one season, does that mean it ends on like a cliffhanger and you don't get a full narrative experience? Because that'd be another issue for me.
No, this is definitely a full narrative experience. If you go and you like buy the first episode, or a lot of the times once a Telltale series is done, they'll release that first episode for free. If you're just checking out one episode, you're not getting the full narrative, right? It's the first like chapter, or it's the first issue in a volume or a run of Batman, similar to that. But if you go by the whole season, you are getting an entire narrative.
Okay.
They leave a couple dangling threads for characters that are just kind of, they're touched on in the game, but they're not central to the game. But it's obvious that if they ever like pick it up for season 2, that, okay, I can kind of see who the next villains are going to be, because they were almost like side characters in this one. So they have enough dangling threads that they can come back to it and make a really good season 2, but they don't have to. This feels like a full narrative you get from the start of the season to the end of the season.
Okay. Now you have a VR headset thing. Is this one of the games? I know there's an actual Batman VR thing that just lets you suit up or whatever. Don't the Telltale games also have a VR version, or am I thinking of something else?
No, I think you're thinking of something else.
Okay.
I do know the Batman thing that you're talking about, and that's exclusive to PlayStation VR, which I don't have.
Okay.
But no, I don't think there's any VR stuff with Telltale right now.
Okay. So I guess final question then about Batman the Telltale series is what it cost you, what it costs right now that it's not on Steam sale, and what you as a gamer would be willing to pay for this kind of game, because cost is such a big deal for me personally, where I don't like buying any game if I have to spend more than like $10, just because Steam is a thing that exists, and if all I want is just to sit down and play a video game, I have a backlog of games that I know I like the Arkham games. I do still want to, I never did Arkham Knight, but I wanted to get into, those games as well. But this sounds like something that I at least would very much want to give a shot, just because it's a different narrative experience. I don't know how interested I am in all of the relationships that Batman is a part of, but if it's a decent balance and if it's a good story, then I'm still down.
Cool. Yeah, and I'd like to hear what you think about it too. So I just looked it up.
Yes,
because
that's
a
why I
great
was
question.
talking. I heard you typing.
Yeah, I was
rambled
typing
a bit.
So I don't know on all the platforms, because if I remember right, it is PS4, Xbox One, iOS, Android, and Steam. I just happen to play it on PC because I always watch for Steam sales. And
Okay.
I want to say that I picked it up right under $15. I think it was like $14.99 or something like that.
Oh,
when
wow.
it was
That's
on
not bad. Okay.
Steam sale. Yeah. So I'm looking right now. The full price right now on Steam as of this recording is $24.99. If historically with Telltale games, that should fall soon. And the other thing is that it will definitely go on Steam sale, probably for every Steam sale in the future, because that's almost what like all the Telltale games do. So I don't know if it's worth $24. I would maybe just wait for the next Steam sale, but there's almost one every season these days. The other thing is I'm looking on Steam, and because it's complete, they have episode 1 for free. So you can go get episode 1 and just try it out.
Oh, perfect.
So I would recommend that. I mean, that will give you enough of a taste to know if you want the rest of it and if it's the thing for you.
Awesome. I think that's definitely something that I'm going to do then. Well, thank you. Any last thoughts on the game before we wrap this up?
No, I really liked it. It was a really good Batman game, and it wasn't quite what I was expecting because, like I said, I came into it, the last few Batman games I had played were the Arkham ones, and this is just a change of pace, and it worked. And I was just happy that it worked because I wasn't sure if it was going into it, but I loved it in the end. So this was a game that I enjoyed a lot. It was definitely worth like the $15 that I paid for it. So I would suggest if any of it sounds interesting to you guys, go check out that episode 1 for free on Steam. And check your other platforms too. They might have episode 1 for free on all the platforms these days. That wouldn't surprise me, knowing how Telltale is.
Okay, well, perfect. Well, hey, thank you for coming on and talking about the Batman game. I hope the next time that you check out any other comic book video game, I mean, I'm definitely going to ask you to come on. I'll keep an eye out.
Yes, absolutely.
Just so everybody knows, where can they find you on the interwebs?
Oh, yeah, you can find me. Twitter is the best place to reach me if you want to discuss something. I'm at GRN Mushroom. That's green mushroom without the E's. But I'm also on the Geek to Geek podcast, which I know Rob plugs every episode, and I appreciate. I'm on that with BJ Keaton, and we talk about just kind of whatever geeky topic we pick for the week. So you can find that on all the places podcasts are not sold, but free. But the Geek to Geek podcast.
Cool. And then, of course, there's the subreddit, which I'll plug at the end of the show.
Yes, that's always fun for talking about stuff. And I love that you're doing Weekly Geekery, we're doing Weekly Geekery every week, just kind of what we've been up to. And the community has taken that on. And almost every week, somebody of the community posts a Weekly Geekery thread, and a bunch of people just jump in and talk about what they've been doing. And that's like, that makes me so happy to see that.
Yeah, that's why I kind of was like, oh boy, I have to have it in my show now. And I love that. I love the fact that it's just somebody in the Geek to Geek community. It's none of us hosts that post it every week asking people what they're doing. Somebody else jumps in and does it on their own just because they're excited to talk about whatever they've been up to that week. And everybody just engages in the conversation if they have something to say on what each person is doing. And that's kind of, I think that might be my favorite thing too. Like, I love that everybody can get in. I think there's not nearly as many comic book people as video game people on there. But when I do get people that start talking comic books on there, it's a really good time. And then with something like this, everybody can jump in. So I look forward to hearing what other people think about this game as well. And I'm definitely going to go check out that first episode. So again, thank you very much.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely let me know once you play it. I want to know what you think. But thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no problem.
Bye, everybody. I don't know. How do you want to transition to the next segment?
I don't know. I think that after this, I'm just going to close it out. So
do it.
So I'm just going to go. I'm going to go back. I'm going to go back to reality because this is a pre-recorded thing. So I'm going to go back to the rest of the podcast with a dop doo doo da da doom chicka doo 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 interview and stuff doo Batman.
And now here's Future Rob.
And we're back. Wasn't that terrific, Liam?
It was, and so nice to hear Void's voice again.
It's funny because you haven't, because we're still just recording our bits.
What?
Hilarious. Peek behind the curtain.
Production.
Yes, the important thing that I will tell you to get a reaction out of you, even though it was just said in the segment itself, is that you can get episode 1 of Batman the Telltale Series for free on Steam right now. Ooh. So you and I are going to have to go and check that out and play that, and maybe we'll talk about that next week in like a weekly geekery if we get to it.
Yeah, sure. I've got a little time to play some Telltale Batman.
Yeah. So, but X-23 Innocence Lost is our priority, and then watching the Logan trailers a couple more times.
Oh, yeah. A couple more times a day.
So that is it for this week, you guys. Star ratings and reviews on iTunes or wherever it is that you listen. Remember, on iTunes, you have to search for us in the search bar, and then you can get to the place to give us a review. They will never fix it, because why would they?
Yeah.
This show is part of the Geek to Geek podcast network. For more info on our shows and to sign up for an email for every time we release a new episode, you can go to geektogeekcast.net. For me, I am on Twitter at Rob's Comic Box. I also have a personal Twitter, which is at Nobi, that has nothing to do with comic books. You can come and talk to us on Reddit. We are at reddit.com/r/geektogeekcast. And finally, you can email me at thecomicboxpodcast@gmail.com. But don't worry about it. Nobody emails me.
You know what? I'm going to email you.
All right. We either talk on Reddit or we talk via Twitter. That's the main place that I talk to people who listen to the show. I do suggest the subreddit, though, because we need more comic fans over there. It's mostly video game people, and I want to find that nice balance. Liam, where can we all find you?
Well, I'm generally standing out on the street corner with a trench coat, selling my wares. But I'm basically just on Facebook.
By wares, I assume you mean pop vinyl figures.
Yes. Yeah, I'm over at Reddit, Irish_mutt, and I'm on the Facebook.
Yeah, so come talk to Liam. Liam, you should start a thread over there. Do an AMA. You'll get like 1 or 2 responses, but that'll pick up steam.
Yeah. Is that your real beard? Yes, it is. Oh,
yes,
okay.
It is. I don't know. I got nothing. Well, thank you for joining me again, Liam. Obviously, next week it's going to be you have to come back, because that's what we're talking about is the Logan trailer thing. I will say, just as general announcement, I don't know what our release date is going to be now, as Liam and I sort of try and sync up our schedules and figure out a good day for us to record. And then obviously I have to spend all of the time editing it and doing show notes and all that. So I do not know if we're going to continue releasing on, normally we've been doing like a Thursday, Friday, so that we release right along with the Geek to Geek podcast. We might extend it to a Monday or a Tuesday, whatever. So bear with us. We will probably be shifting release dates a little bit as the week goes on because I never schedule releases. I just get it done and post it as soon as I finished editing it because I'm so excited. Like, why wouldn't you?
Yeah. Why not?
Yeah. So bear with us as we get all that scheduling figured out. But beyond that, we will see you guys next week for All Sorts of Logan.
All sorts of Logan.
Close us out, Liam. Comic box.
Comic box.
Comic box.
Comic box. Comic box.
Gonna see a little bit of Logan trailers for next week. Read X23.
Read it.